And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PSBTA Technical Solutions webinar series. My name is Martha Ellis, and I am the Executive Director for the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association, or the PSBTA. As an association, our primary objective is to work as an end-user advocate for all primary and extended primary FirstNet users. This includes all first responders and service providers who support response, mitigation, and recovery efforts during emergencies. We've created this webinar series in an effort to bring you the most current and accurate information on all aspects of broadband use for public safety personnel, including the latest developments in technology specific to the ecosystem. Today's webinar is the 7th in a series of 12 specifically designed to not only showcase the network, but many of the FirstNet approved applications which can be found in the FirstNet app catalog. The FirstNet, built with AT&T Lean-In webinars, are all about helping you optimize the FirstNet network, assuring the highest level of preparedness and reliable communications. If you have missed any of the previous presentations, please feel free to visit the psbta.org to watch the archived webinars. Before we get started today, I have a few housekeeping items for our attendees. All of the attendees have automatically been muted to reduce background noise. Any questions should be submitted directly to us through the questions function, which is located at the bottom of the menu on the right side of your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of our presentations. We will attempt to answer as many questions as possible, yet stay within our allotted hour. We will follow up with any questions that do not get answered during the live portion of the webinar when we finish up today. If you have further questions when the webinar is over, we will also provide emails for the presenters at the end, so you can follow up at your convenience. Also in the panel to the right of your screen, I'd like to point out that there are handouts available that should be downloaded prior to the conclusion of the webinar. Today's first responders deal with complex situations that require immediate situational awareness, a strong line of communications with medical control, and the ability to quickly render life-saving care to those in need. Today we will be discussing 3 different applications from the FirstNet app catalog that help first responders provide the highest level of care when needed most. Our presenters today are Fire Chief Richard Price, President from PulsePoint Foundation, Kurt Bashford, CEO with General Devices, and Stan Allen, Chief of Communications, Vitals Aware Services. In bringing the app catalog to life, they'll discuss their software capabilities, give demonstrations, and share use case scenarios to help you make critical applications decisions for your agencies. We also have Steve Devine, Director of FirstNet Strategy and Policy, who will take questions on FirstNet, our nation's most reliable wireless public safety network and the linchpin in successfully leveraging these kinds of tools. With that, I am going to turn the time over to Richard Price to get us started with our webinar, Using Technology to Quicken Life-Saving Care.
Hey everybody, thanks for taking time out of your day to be here with us. PulsePoint was conceived and tested in Northern California in a fire department where I was the chief. It was that department, San Ramon Valley Fire, that actually formed the 501c3 nonprofit foundation that today remains responsible to help other agencies deploy PulsePoint. I ran that sort of at the end of my career as the fire chief, and I retired to continue run the foundation. So that's really been almost 10 years now that the foundation has been in place. So let's get started. PulsePoint has 2 apps, so I thought I'd just briefly introduce both to prevent any confusion when you head to the App Store or Google Play. Today's presentation is on PulsePoint Respond, but I'll just briefly mention the yellow icon. PulsePoint AED is used to maintain a community's AED registry. You'll soon see that knowing where AEDs are located is key to PulsePoint Respond, and PulsePoint Respond AEDs are also available to call takers and dispatchers. But PulsePoint AED is for another day. Let's discuss PulsePoint Respond, the red icon. The flagship feature of PulsePoint Respond is the ability to notify trained individuals of the nearby need for CPR simultaneous with the dispatch of on-duty crews. PulsePoint is connected to the local 911 center, the PSAP, through a CAD system integration. We have interfaces with nearly every CAD vendor. The idea for PulsePoint came to me being at lunch and listening to an approaching siren and ultimately seeing my own crews pull up to a business next to where I was eating. That's when I found out that somebody was unconscious, unresponsive, and just like 20 feet away from me. Knowing CPR and having an AED in my vehicle, it was a tough realization that I likely could have made a big difference in that outcome. Our cell phones are essentially radios, and the dispatch center knows where CPR is needed, and PulsePoint knows where CPR trained individuals are located. In the business next door, like what happened to me, or on the floor above, or at my neighbor's house if I'm a professional. These are people who are close enough to make a difference, but they're far enough away that they otherwise, wouldn't be aware of the nearby need. I'll discuss this in more detail, but in general, members of the public are notified of cardiac arrest events in public places, while professionals and other vetted individuals are notified of all events. If you indicate that you're responding, you are shown your location, the location of the victim, and any nearby AEDs. You can also toggle on the dispatch audio to listen for any information being passed to the responding crews. And in this public activation example, there's some quick CPR instructional reminders. So in addition to CPR needed alerts, PulsePoint is well known for its ability to help an agency keep their community informed of emergency activity. This is especially useful during like wildland fire season that we're in now, but it's popular for more routine events like being alerted to an accident on a commute route, or if the smoke someone is smelling is something they need to be concerned about. PulsePoint aims to build an app with daily usefulness, so people use it often, come to rely on it, tell their friends about it. This organically grows the network and makes the premise of PulsePoint work. We learned early on that an app that simply notifies you of a nearby CPR is often not talked about in casual conversations with families and neighbors, and it can be soon forgotten about. It's also not easy to keep apps active in the background when they're never opened by the user. The ever battery conserving mobile operating systems are suspect to apps that are never used, and they are ultimately froze out of resources like location updates. So this is a filtered list. It doesn't contain all the incident types. You might also notice that the medical calls are shown generically as medical emergencies. They don't include addresses beyond street names and cities. You might choose not to show medical incidents at all. The main consideration is that you need to include enough here to make your public feed useful and valued by the community. You can also tap on an incident and see a map view. That 3 badge means that this incident's at a 3rd alarm. Lots of additional functionality is available here, like the map type, the routing, traffic conditions, the ability to share the information with others. Some of this is dependent on the call type and if you're a professional user or not. The AED registry is also visible from within PulsePoint Respond, not just where there's a CPR activation. You can see on the screen the registry is for more than just AEDs. Agencies commonly are co-locating other time-sensitive resources like EpiPens and Narcan, bleeding control kits, and these are all managed and displayed by the PulsePoint registry as well. Agencies can display a profile within the app. This provides an opportunity to share your social media accounts and encourage conversation with your community. Users follow their favorite agencies to get quick access to incident lists and notifications. It's typical to follow your home agency and the surrounding agencies. A member of the public this might be where they live and work. A professional user, it might be your agency and a neighboring automatic aid or mutual aid agency, or your agency and the agency where you live. You add agencies with the search bar at the top of the screen. You just type the agency name, the city or zip, or touch the GPS icon to search for agencies where you're currently located. Let's see, go back up here. You can also choose to be notified of a specific incident type or incident type groups. So like a rescue type group might be, confined space rescues, trench rescues, water rescues. A utility type group might be calls like wires down, gas leaks, sheared hydrants. All these notifications are typically very fast. Remember that PulsePoint is directly integrated with CAD, with the dispatch system, and has an interface just like a station alerting system. PulsePoint is promoted by your agency to members of your community, and we work very hard to make sure that its capabilities are available to everyone. We use scalable type for those who need larger text. Individuals with impaired color perception can differentiate without color to convey unit status information using monochrome text labels. We offer spoken content for blind and vision impaired users or users with reading disabilities. Your community will view this app as coming from you and will rely on it in an emergency. So it's important that we meet the same accessibility standards as a public agency. And that extends, to languages as well. Not everyone in your community may speak English. PulsePoint is always released simultaneously in English, Spanish, French, and Japanese. All our community outreach materials are also available in additional languages. So here's a look at our professional version, what we call Verified Responder Pro. This version is for agency employees. In contrast to the public version, all calls are shown in Verified Responder Pro. Calls of a dangerous or sensitive nature are typically not shown in the filtered public view. You'll also notice that the actual medical call type is shown along with the full address. Verified Responder Pro also allows routing to medical incidents, something not supported in the public version. These are just a few of the main differences of our Pro version. And just to close the loop here, heading back to our CPR activation screen, looking at the main differences for professional user, first and foremost, residential activation. Verified responders are notified of all cardiac arrests when they're needed nearby. And these users are commonly equipped with an AED and other resources for off-duty use. You'll also notice that the footer menu is a little different for VRs. CPR instructions are replaced with a metronome, and a digital ID is available since you're potentially responding to a public location, if needed. Both apps fully support tablets on iOS and Android. Here's Respond taking advantage of the full real estate of a 12.9-inch iPad. You can always look at PulsePoint stats at pulsepoint.org/stats. You can see just some I'll highlight here, 694 incidents. We typically process about 700 cardiac arrest incidents a day, or approaching 2.5 million users. About 4,000 communities are connected to PulsePoint. Here's a quick look at Southern California. So a look at PulsePoint. If you were to look at this map and think about how many fire stations are in that area versus how many PulsePoint responders are in that area, you can see sort of the potential here that PulsePoint offers, that somebody is going to be a lot closer and can get to a scene and start CPR while the crews are still en route. And when those crews arrive, have a much better opportunity to have a patient that's starting in better condition. So this is just one view. We have lots of views like this on the website. If you look at the resources tab on the PulsePoint website, you can see other maps in other regions, but just a quick view of that. So 10 minutes on PulsePoint likely raises more questions than it answers. I encourage you to download the apps, follow a few agencies, and then reach out to us with your questions. We're happy to do a presentation to your staff and get into all the specifics of your unique agency and dispatch environment. And I know we plan to answer at least a few questions at the end of this session as well. So, go ahead and submit your questions here, and we'll get to as many as we can. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention. It's now my pleasure to pass the mouse to Kurt Bashford. He's the CEO of General Devices, and he's going to show you eBridge. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Richard. That's a great program and great presentation. Appreciate that. So yeah, here, CEO here at General Devices, or we go by GD. And I'm going to share with you some information about our FirstNet listed eBridge mobile telemedicine app used by EMS and hospitals across the country that directly addresses the topic of this webinar. So using life-saving technology in care. This webinar is about the tech that is available today, like we just saw from Richard, to shorten the time to treatment, why saving lives and improving outcomes. Now, you've probably heard of the golden arrow, that critical period after traumatic injury for treatment to give the highest likelihood to prevent death. But also, more common with heart attacks and what we call STEMIs, time is muscle, time is heart tissue. And a national standard said you want less than 90 minutes from the time you hit the door to intervention to clear that clot. And we know that there's, in a 1-year survival decreases roughly 3% for every additional minute to intervention. So time is critical. And in stroke, brain attack, time is brain. In certain cases of stroke, we can lose up to 2 million cells per minute. Early interventions correlate to long-term outcomes. So what's the technology? Mobile telehealth and telemedicine. And what does the public expect today? Just a quick snippet from a call back in my EMS days. There's trauma accident, patients being worked up in the ambulance. A long story short, a long-winded radio report to the physician trying to describe everything they saw. They get done, and I think it's the wife that was in there and says, "You can't video conference with a doctor? I Skype with my daughter at college every day." So that sets the bar and sets the expectations, because we do have this technology. It's just not often deployed, but it's here now and it is working. So telemedicine and telehealth, what's the difference between them? So telemedicine is actually a form of telehealth, but it refers more specifically to the remote clinical pieces, and the telehealth tends to be more the non-clinical. But the real key is the mobile wireless environment. That's EMS, that's in the hospital moving around. Wired's easy. Mission critical telemedicine is hard. So let's look at a few examples. These are some acute care cases. Stroke and trauma and STEMI we just talked about, but things like sepsis and overdose and burns also. And then, perhaps not acute care, but more everyday, documenting refusals, managing mental health patients, which facility do they need to go to, managing large events and MCI disasters. New program we're going to touch on with ET3 and mobile integrated healthcare and medical direction on your everyday 911 calls. And how do we do this? Well, HIPAA secure, of course. It's got to be solid and robust and secure. Notifications, pictures and live video conferencing, information to smooth that handoff when the EMS arrives at the hospital and before. Live ETA tracking, not the proverbial will be there in 10 minutes. And full team communications beyond the ED up until to the acute care teams and throughout the hospital if necessary. Working on process workflows, leaning out the time to treatments, and again, relating to that critical time to care. Video interpretations I'll touch on, and then all this has quality and legal aspects as well. Why? All aimed at right care at the right place and the right time. And again, why that? To save lives, improve outcomes, and reduce costs for both EMS and hospitals. So a little bit on acute care. So we touched on what those might be, but in the instance of stroke, medical contact is really with EMS, not just when you get to the hospital. So that starts the time clock on this intervention. Team communications all the way through. So in the case of stroke, EMS arrives, they assess the patient, they do a stroke assessment, believe they have a stroke, they hit the stroke button on the app, alerts the doc at the hospital, they confer, they can see the information and the stroke score that EMS has captured. They can do video conference if they want. The doc can hit a stroke alert button that activates teams upstream in the hospital. They all have access to the same information, the time clock of how long this has been going on, the live ETA status. So when the cath lab gets the notification, they can see right to the minute and second when they're going to arrive. So can they put another patient in the CAT scan, or do they need to keep it open because they're going to roll through the door and we don't want to waste time? Right up to the neural team and to pharmacy and patient registration, because we can send the driver's license through and have that all done. So we can really tie this all together in a full team communications. And what with this information, we're going to talk a little bit about, the information that you can get out of this, the benchmark from the data. As the app is also a mechanism to provide outcomes back to EMS, which is an important gap and loophole right now. And again, all aimed at reducing risk and errors and costs. So a little bit about the telehealth, maybe not the acute care, but the everyday, lower acuity stuff. So ET3 is a new program coming out from CMS Medicare, start later this year, aimed at preventing unnecessary transport to the hospital. For the triage, treat, and transport, it requires a video telehealth component in order to do that. One of our customers, FDNY in New York, they estimate that 30% of their calls probably don't need transport to a regular hospital. Mobile integrated healthcare and community paramedicine, for managing, calls outside the hospital, reducing unnecessary transport, reducing high utilizers, providing follow-up to prevent unnecessary readmits, which are costly to the system. And then we have the ability with eBridge Visit to send a link or in a text or email to do a direct-to-patient telemedicine call or engage another provider. And we'll touch on that a little bit later as well. And of course, the one we're all dealing with today, COVID-19, how can we use telemedicine, telehealth to manage that? Well, state of Michigan and other areas around the country are using eBridge to manage those patients so they can assess them remotely in the field, not bring everything back to the hospital and expose, the healthcare teams. So distance is the best PPE. All right, so what is eBridge? It is an all-in-one, highly configurable, and that's part of the special sauce app. Runs on all the standard mobile devices, has all the capabilities you would expect, plus a lot more. So secure, HIPAA secure text and pictures. We talked about video conferencing, but also you need to be able to do video clips because you may not have bandwidth, or you may have a provider that's not, the neurologist may not be available at that moment in time, so you can capture it and send it to them. The ability for the users to create forms and collect the data that they want to collect. There's an expression in EMS, if you know one EMS system, you know just one EMS system. So being able to configure this the way they need it to work is critical, especially when you get into workflows where we're going deeper into the hospital. We have the ability, unlike some others, to integrate in 12 lead EKGs and other medical device data from peripherals so that all that data information is in one platform shared across the team. And we already talked about the live ETA tracking, and we can do geofences around the hospital and such. So the ability to configure your button here. Video language interpretation. So we touched on, I mentioned it earlier, but we partnered with a provider that allows us to have a video medical interpreter brought into the call so that all patients can get the same level of care. And that's actually a legal requirement for the limited English proficient patients. So in the past, the typical was a phone call, and we know that a phone call is only a small percentage of the information carried in a conversation. Body language and tone has a lot more, and video kind of bridges that gap as well. All on the same device, the same app, so the patient, the medic, and the physician and the interpreter can all do what's best to speed up care for this patient. And data, we live in a data world. So information derived from the data is really where the value is. So eBridge offers a dashboard in the ED that they can put on a big monitor so they, at a glance, the staff can see what's coming in, what's the status, what's the real live ETA, so they can all be best prepared to receive that patient, and they know they have the information available to them as well. We also have our DescribeX program, which captures, think of that as a log recorder, much like our Describe on our CarePoint workstation you may be familiar with. Recording and logging all the data for both QI and QA, medical, legal, run reports. They can run reports, they can use that information to lean their workflows, find bottlenecks, show the need for more personnel, and export data to medical record systems. And broader connections. So we did a project for the University of Mississippi in Jackson, Mississippi just a few months ago, and we developed the GoBox, which is a hardened telemedicine system that includes a Toughbook running eBridge with a built-in dual SIM router, hotspot, pan-tilt zoom camera, and medical peripherals. And they're going to use that for emergencies and events and disaster scenes that they respond to. Dr. Darcy's vision of not bringing the patient to Jackson, but bringing Jackson to the patient is realized with the Go Box and with eBridge. eBridge Visit we touched on, but that's our way to do a direct connection to a patient or to a provider specialist that's not already in the organization or network. Again, simple text or email with a link to their mobile device and bring them into the call. And regional systems. EMS and hospitals in a region all commuting together, and that is the focus of this webinar, to use technology to quicken and save life-saving care. So just a quick little bit about GD and our core purpose. Responsivation is a core value for us. And we may be the quiet company and perhaps the best kept secret to the angst of my marketing department, but we've been around for 40 years. We've been doing hospital EMS communications for 30 years, and we're in over 500 hospitals connected to thousands of EMS systems, handling over 16,000 patient encounters a day, the number of lives that we touch. And that concludes my presentation. There's a lot more to discuss. Love to have a conversation and learn more about what your needs are and what your pain points are. So let's have a conversation. That concludes my portion. So now I'd like to hand it over to Stan from Vitals Aware.
Thank you, Kurt. You have a much needed service. Congratulations on what you're doing. It's very important. I'm here to spend a few minutes to talk to you guys about Vitals Aware Services. We're the creators of the Vitals app. And what we have done is we've created life-saving technology that is really at the intersection of helping first responders with de-escalation. And we really want to hit at that use of force issue, the national issue that's going on right now. I'm Stan Allen. I'm the Chief of Communications and been with Vitals since it started. We launched in the summer of 17. And we are expanding as quickly as we can because, like I said before, we have life-saving technology. I want to kick this presentation off with a short video, and a lot of you have already kind of seen this nationally, but I kind of want to kick it off with a video.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning. Pressure is mounting for a new investigation into the death of a man after an encounter with police in Colorado last August. According to his family, 23-year-old Elijah McClain was out buying iced tea when he was stopped by 3 officers after someone had called 911 claiming McClain was wearing a ski mask and acting weird, quote, waving his arms around. Within 15 minutes, he had been put in a chokehold and injected with a powerful sedative. Our lead national correspondent, David Begnaud, is following the case.
Stop right there. Stop. 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 I have a right to stop you because you're being suspicious. Stop. Relax. Stop. I'm going home. Relax or I'm going to have to change this situation. Stop. Leave me alone. Stop.
The district attorney investigating the case says that Elijah McClain dismissed the officer's requests for him to stop. The 23-year-old's family says he was just walking home. He was listening to music when Aurora, Colorado police approached him last August. The DA says McClain was carrying a plastic bag when police tried to pat him down and he refused. He's then heard pleading with the police as they tackle him and use a chokehold on him.
I have no gun. I don't do that stuff.
Paramedics.
Difficult to watch. I know most of us probably have seen that, and you feel sometimes for the officer because there are a lot of people who are walking around who are around us that they're just not showing you their vulnerabilities. They're not showing you their disability or their condition. And so what Vitals is about is helping first responders have more information in real time to really do their jobs more effectively when they're dealing with people who might be processing things slower or just can't have a voice when they really need to. We have an example, a use case here, Marcus Abrams. Similar to Elijah, Marcus has autism, Asperger's. About 4 or 5 years ago, Marcus was in the wrong place at the wrong time with some of the wrong people. And Marcus, the officers said disperse, leave the area. And Marcus, he has Asperger's, so he struggled, and he ended up being injured. A year later, same kind of scenario, and he ended up being tased multiple times. Early on, we saw that we got him involved in vitals, and I still remember the call from his mom when she said the technology works, it works. And what happened was there were some officers in St. Paul that responded to the school where Marcus was located, and this time they had vitals and they were able to de-escalate the situation and save him. And so that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. The issues are severe. I don't need to tell most of you, but 1 in 5 U.S. adults will experience some type of mental health crisis in their lifetime. 1 in 10 calls to first responders are mental health related. And we have over 100 million people that we consider to have some type of a condition, sometimes invisible, sometimes visible. Our market are caregivers and vulnerable individuals, like I said earlier. Public safety, of course, that's why I'm here. First responders, law enforcement, fire, anybody who goes immediately and are addressing people when there's an emergency or a situation. Schools and organizations. What's really powerful is we've been able to partner with organizations like NAMI that focus on mental health, ARC that focus on developmental disabilities, Project Lifesaver that focus on elopers and things like that. So we don't want to go alone. We want to partner with people who already have been doing a lot of work in these areas. So here's how it works in a nutshell. We use technology, Bluetooth technology. And so an individual or family member, they download our app on their smartphones, as well as a first responder, law enforcement, they download a different app on their smartphones. We also have these Bluetooth devices, we call them beacons sometimes, and they come in the form of keychains like a fob or credit card looking Bluetooth device, or even like a tile. It's even smaller that can be in a pocket or something like that. We also have wristbands if people really need attachability. And so what happens is when somebody has our technology, when they come within 80 feet of a first responder with our technology, that first responder is going to get a ping or an alert on their phone that is given to them temporarily while they're in proximity. The signal transmits to our secure cloud server and gives the information temporarily onto the first responder's smartphone, giving them information in real time that can help them engage a person more effectively. The profile looks a little bit like this. It's voluntary, and the family member or the individual, they do a thumbnail picture, they just a description of themselves, conditions, critical information that they think could help them when they're in a bind, de-escalation techniques, behavior triggers, medications that they're taking, and when all else fails, they can put emergency contact information, contact my wife, contact my caregiver for assistance. We also have de-escalation tools where people can bring themselves to the scene, where you have a mother who already knows her son might get escalated, and if a first responder doesn't know how to handle that person, now they can bring her to the scene, and there's a recording that she can have and kind of help the first responder. The model is we try to keep it so anybody can have it. It's about $5 a month for an individual or family. And they get access to a profile, they get access to different beacons, and they have a smartphone can also be, a Bluetooth can also be a beacon. Let me keep going. We also have, there's a lot of elopers, people wander they just can't help it. And so we also have a feature where those folks can have an alert when a loved one or somebody they're taking care of, when they wander 80 feet away. And then we also have a service where we can locate them and track them. First responder app, This is what it looks like for first responders, where they get thumbnails of the individuals. So how it works is as they get closer to an individual, that'll pop up on their screen. They'll get an alert. If everything is normal, then they don't even need to take care of it. If there's something that's unusual or somebody's in distress, now they have an option to go in and use that information to help them interact more effectively with the person. So, I started with Elijah, and we talk about Marcus, and that story was great because we believe we saved his life. His mom believes that we saved his life. We also have some use cases that aren't as like life or death. We have a young lady. I love telling this story. She's about 21, 22 years old. She has cognitive disabilities. She's able to have some independence, but she needs some assistance. She has a job at Walmart. She goes back and forth. She's memorized those routes. And so one day she was on her way home, and the highway that she normally takes was blocked because there was a traffic fatality. The other highway, there was road construction. So now she's in trouble. She panics. She calls her mom. Her mom says, look, circle back around, ask the officers to help you, give you directions. So she does that. The only problem was earlier that day, those officers had a call saying, be on the lookout for 18 to 22-year-olds. There's a big house party and people will be coming out drinking and driving. And so, Caitlin, who processes a little slower and her speech was probably a little slurry, they thought she might be impaired. And so the officer called backup. He was going to put her through DWI protocol, DUI protocol. The officer that showed up on the scene has vitals. Before he got out of his car, he got alerted. It was Caitlin. And instead of doing what typically happens, he was able to address her by name. He was able to calm her. He was able to call her mom, and they actually escorted her home. So that is one of those wonderful stories that we turned around. And we'd love to talk to you more about what we're doing, but this is about life-saving technology. So thank you. And I'm going to hand off to Martha. She's going to do some Q&A for us.
All right, everybody, if you wouldn't mind, everybody bring your cameras and your mics back on. I am really impressed with these applications. The last one that Stan just presented, we can't do enough, I think, to help some of the people in our community that struggle with mental health, and such an incredibly important tool, and sounds like you've already realized great successes. And I appreciate the time that you took to put those presentations together, gentlemen. That was great. So right now I'm going to take just a minute and turn our attention to the FirstNet network itself. We have Steve Devine here today, who is going to give us a little brief overview of how we got to where we are with FirstNet today, and maybe a little glimpse into what the future might hold. Steve?
Thanks, Martha. Great presentations, everybody. We're just thrilled to have those kind of applications that the FirstNet platform can support and provide to the first responders as well as to those that they protect. FirstNet was created legislatively by Congress in 2012. The FirstNet Authority was established and put out an RFP, which AT&T was awarded in 2017 to build a nationwide public safety broadband network. March of 2017, we're 3.5 years into it, 1.5 million connections and growing, representing users from over 13,000 agencies, 150 plus FirstNet ready devices, and 125 plus FirstNet applications in the app catalog. I think that's critical. The devices and the applications are in this ecosystem that really leverages global technologies and capabilities, and it really moves the dial fast with regard to capability. So it's our job to make sure that public safety's needs are always rolled into the dialogue for new products and new feature sets and new capabilities. Band 14 markets, 700 plus markets today that are out there, continue to build. Last year, our response operations group had over 450 requests for deployable assets, whether it was with regard to outages or incidents or hurricanes or tornadoes or whatever it may be. And we also have a response operations group that works with other entities within AT&T to support deployable assets and roll deployable assets. We have sat colts that are trucks with cell sites on them. We have cell on wings. We also call cows. And then we have a blimp. It's called FirstNet 1. It's an aerostat that can operate at 1,000 feet and provide a radius of several miles. And when we have a long-term event like a hurricane response, we can put that aerostat in place, and then that'll free up additional sat colts to provide the backup and the reconstitution of the network that the first responders need. So FirstNet continues to grow and evolve, supporting these type applications, and we're really thrilled to be the mechanism that makes these functionalities and capabilities available to first responders.
Well, and I think you touched on a really salient point there, Steve, when you talked about the evolution, because even some of the vision from the get-go, although much of it is part of the framework of FirstNet, as more and more first responders become part of this development team and their insights are explored and developed, the evolution is becoming so surgically pointed toward the specific needs of first responders that it's unlike any other system or group that are working on these challenging communications problems. So I really appreciate that part of it. So in speaking about medicine, telemedicine, also some of the hurdles that the rural first responder has. I mean, I've had good friends in rural EMS, and some of their response times, they're literally in the back of that ambulance with patients, sometimes over an hour. And can you talk a little bit about what FirstNet is doing to support those rural environments to make sure that they have that connectivity to their medical control?
Sure. EMS and all disciplines are benefiting from FirstNet in different ways. And EMS is a great example of that lag, and rural in particular, when there's a significant distance to the hospital, the ability for the emergency room staff to monitor and to provide feedback back and forth and to monitor the biometrics of the patient and to have a dialogue with the EMS personnel during that transit and to be able to share that information. So when upon arrival, the emergency room staff has the information not just from what they see now, but what they've seen over the last 30 or 45 minutes in that travel. So it paints a better picture for them. They can understand better how to treat the patient. So EMS is a great example. The other thing about FirstNet is its security. FirstNet is built to 256-bit encryption. It's secure. It has to be for both EMS and HIPAA, as well as for CJIS, criminal justice information. So the highest degree of security on the FirstNet network is available to EMS, to fire, to law enforcement as it's required. And FirstNet is obligated to the government to meet certain contractual obligations. So when we say we're going to do something, we have to do it, and we have oversight from the federal government for that. There's a lot of carriers who have great ideas, but whether that idea still is in place a month from now is there's really no oversight there. So the security, those things have to be met. We offer those, and those security needs may change going forward. It's a 25-year contract we have with the government, and if those security needs change based on certain applications or feature sets, then our ability to serve those via FirstNet is going to continue as well.
Fantastic. Hey, a question actually just came in about FirstNet and 5G. Can you give us a super quick synopsis of where that's headed?
Sure. As we all know, FirstNet is built on the 3GPP standards and 4G LTE, and that transition is to 5G and its subsequent evolutions going forward. There's a number of ways to configure 5G, and to do that while still supporting all of your customers. Carriers across the globe, have plans to do that. We have plans to do that as well. We have to be cognizant of our 5G growth and being able to maintain and support our customers, and doing both of those at the same time is part of our roadmap and part of our transition. But FirstNet will support 5G going forward. Again, FirstNet was originally predicated just to be the band 14 spectrum. AT&T opened up its entire LTE spectrum bands, and it will continue to do that going forward. So we have a roadmap. We have to be advanced and migrate in 5G and subsequent 6Gs and et cetera. But we also have to be cognizant that rural EMS department has a device that operates on 4G LTE, and we have to be cognizant of them as we migrate forward.
Yeah, great points. Excellent points. All right, super. Thank you very much, Steve. Richard, I'm going to move on to you. And it's very interesting because we actually got a very encouraging comment from an individual watching saying PulsePoint has been an awesome addition to their technology cadre. So kudos to you. You got a little fan club out there. Can you give us a few examples of some large metro departments that are using PulsePoint?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know, there's a lot of examples. So, like LA City Fire, LA County Fire, jointly, those two agencies, both PulsePoint connected, serve about 10 million people. Those are both, billion-dollar budget agencies. Sort of maybe jumping to the other coast, thinking about like National Capital Region, Washington, D.C. Fire, Prince George County, Prince William County, Prince George County, one of the largest, I think the largest combination department in the country. Seattle, Washington, San Diego, San Jose, Broward County, Florida. If you think about some EMS agencies, BC EHS covers the entire province of British Columbia. Mecklenburg EMS is the largest EMS agency in North Carolina. So those are some examples of big ones. Sometimes we can add a bunch of agencies together and get a huge area, like the whole Portland, Oregon, greater Portland, Oregon area, Portland, Salem, Tualatin Valley. It's about 3,000 square miles contiguous, but a number of agencies kind of make that up. But PulsePoint is not just about large agencies. So I appreciate the question, but if you have cardiac arrest in your community, we want you connected to PulsePoint. We have one station, rural agencies as well, and they're just as important to us. So we are from the smallest to the largest in the country.
Fantastic. And how do you verify professional users for the verified responder access?
Yeah, so that's done by the agency. So verified responders are assigned by the individual PulsePoint municipalities, the PulsePoint agencies. So they have a registry and they can authenticate their users directly. So we have some plans to do that on a broader scale with FirstNet and being able to take advantage of FirstNet's authorization and single sign-on and things. But until that's in place, agencies have their own registries and can maintain that. They decide who are professional users, and there's levels of, we have verified responders, which are users with enhanced access, and we have verified responder pros. It's kind of similar to like primary users on the FirstNet network, but agencies today control that themselves.
All right. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to move on to Kurt. We'll talk a little bit more about general devices. Can eBridge be used on personal devices by EMS or hospital users?
Good question. Short answer is yes, and we see combinations of both personal devices, whether it be on the EMS side or even the physicians in the hospital. And in some cases, they're on an organization device, so a phone or a mobile device that's linked to that ambulance or linked to the emergency department or to a different department. So short answer, yes, and it can go across the spectrum, and we can even handle the device management system, the MMS type systems.
Okay, fantastic. And do you need different versions of the eBridge app for regular 911 use versus community paramedicine or disasters?
No, you don't, and that's part of the beauty in the eBridge platform. So it is truly that all-in-one, highly configurable solution, as I talked about in the presentation, and it's scalable. So you can use it for your basic day-to-day activities, and then if you're handling a MIH or mobile integrated health or community paramedicine, you can have workflow and templates in there to manage those. And then, in an event, a disaster or some type of event where you got, lots of patients or, a disaster scene, it scales up because we've all learned the lessons that, when you have separate disaster equipment, is it working? Who remembers how to use it? When you can scale up a platform from day-to-day use all the way through disaster use, that's a win-win for everybody.
And that is such an extraordinary point, Kurt, truly, because a lot of the tools sit in the toolbox, and if you're not exercising them, And of course, using them on a day-to-day basis is a great way to get so familiar with it that when it is escalated, you know that system inside and out. One last very quick question: besides the 12 lead EKGs, what other data can you send?
So we have partnerships with many different companies, but we're able to take in other vital sign monitoring devices, and that can be from stuff out of the monitor defibs. These, 12 lead is kind of a core piece for heart attacks, but the SpO2 readings, the heart rate readings, we can connect to discrete devices like SpO2 monitors, blood pressure monitors, and even scales. I mean, we may not use that on a 911 call, but in a community paramedicine call where they're doing follow-up and management of a patient, there's other vitals in there that we can do. And we've even connected to video laryngoscopes and other peripheral devices where there's video type imagery and treating that as a camera right into the system as well.
That just goes back to those hour-long transport times in the rural parts of this country. I can imagine how invaluable that type of a tool would be for them. Thank you so much, Kurt. So Alan, Stan, I'm gonna move on to you. One of the questions is, how did you come up with this idea? Because this seems like a really spot-on piece of equipment that everybody could use.
So our founding team, they were doing volunteer work actually. It was a project where they were having conversations with nonprofits. One of them was the Autism Society of Minnesota. The other one was the Minnesota Brain Alliance. And basically they were just trying to figure out what was their biggest problem, what was their biggest concern. And this elevated to the top issue where a lot of people who have disabilities are in danger. So we started doing some work. We started doing some tech work around that. And it was a unique idea and we thought we'd go for it. And, it's been great because it's not just first responders, but it's also empowering the community and individuals to make themselves safe too. But that's how we came up with the idea.
Okay, and have you found that there's any particular group that this has been most effective for?
We started with autism. And that has been a really strong group for us. But as we have expanded and talked to different people, any group that sees there's vulnerability. So the mental health, there are people who are so many people walking around with mental health issues. Dementia is a huge group for us now, where people are, eloping and wandering, any kind of developmental disability. That's been strong for us.
So you mentioned the elopers, and that's interesting because I had not heard that term used in that context. So when you are tracking them, I'm just going to ask you a quick question about security. How does your application assure for privacy?
So the one thing that any user, they sign a form. This is voluntary. This is information that they're voluntarily giving to first responders. And the whole idea is this is information that can help them when they need it. And so that allows us to be HIPAA compliant. And the other thing is first responders only have this information for a short period of time. Only when they come within that 80 feet bubble, that 80-foot bubble, they have their information. Once they come out of that bubble, the information goes away. Because a lot of folks, they don't want people to store their information. Nobody gets the information. We do reports to public safety agencies, law enforcement quarterly, but these numbers and this data is in the aggregate. So we don't identify individuals at all.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm getting a little barrage of questions here from our attendees, and I'm going to just try to aggregate these together and pitch them to you each with an opportunity for some closing comments as well. So general questions are about getting access to trials, being able to test your equipment. And then there are some very specific questions about the availability of your technology in specific jurisdictions. So with that, I'm going to start with Richard, and I'm going to ask you, do you provide any opportunities for people to kind of kick the tires on your application? And then what is the access nationwide to utilizing and leveraging your app?
Yeah, so you can go to the App Store or Google Play and download either of PulsePoint's app, PulsePoint Respond or PulsePoint AED. And And on the PulsePoint AED side, you could just add an AED, see how that process is. So you have an AED in your business, in your station, somewhere that you visit, just add it, see the process. That AED would then later be available into a dispatch center that integrated with PulsePoint, or to a PulsePoint Respond user when that locality used PulsePoint Respond. PulsePoint Respond only works in communities that enable PulsePoint, but you can still download the app. They're free, and you could follow Seattle or LA City or Fort Lauderdale or Orlando or Plano, Texas, or anywhere. Find someplace close to you and just follow it and check it out. You'll see exactly how it works, exactly how it would work in your own agency. You're just seeing it in another agency. And I'd also encourage you to talk to other users, we want you to talk to us, but I mean, talk to people who are using PulsePoint, firefighters in the stations that have PulsePoint, and they're going to be able to tell you everything about it. But you can download them, use them just as if they were in your own agency. It's just better when they're in your own agency.
Well, and to your point, I think it's a great idea to leverage maybe those outside agencies to build consensus within your own so that you can deploy it in a way that's going to be useful across disciplines. So thank you for that. Stan, can you respond to the question about the trials on the application and also access and how it integrates into the community and so forth?
Sure, we do trials all the time because this is brand new technology that we almost need to do trials. Typically we'll give a certain amount of accounts to officers, and we'll give a certain number of beacons. We like for them to partner with maybe some of their nonprofit organizations already in their city, and we'll run some demos for them. But that's pretty common. All you have to do is contact us and we'll set that up for you. On the other side, for individuals, we do run, right now it's actually a 6-month trial. We took away the cost during the COVID. We're thinking about shortening that a little bit, but typically it's 30-day trials for individuals who want to try this out.
Okay, fabulous. Kurt?
Yeah, and similar to Stan, so we've done trials kind of all along. Although telemedicine's been around a long time, using it in the field is kind of a newer technology to some. So we've done trials to introduce it into new areas. Often once it's in an area, that sets the stage for expansion in a region, but we do it. And in the state of Michigan, while we had a few accounts dealing with COVID, we made it available statewide. They deployed it in, I think, over 100 medical control authorities across the state. And with us, it's roll it out, do what you got to do. That ties in with our core purpose. Let's take care of the EMS and the patients, and we'll sort it out later and see if it's something they want to continue with, which I'm sure they will. We've done that in many locales. So yeah, see it, live it, believe it. I think what we've all seen, even in our private lives with COVID, telemedicine has really blossomed and bloomed. I think it's accelerated its use in the pre-hospital stage by several years. So where they want to say the genie's out of the bottle or the horse is out of the barn, they're getting used to it. And where ET3 was going to be the novel experience, it's already out, and now it's they're finding the utility of it to help better manage patients.
Great, thank you. And I completely mirror that comment. It's actually a good thing what is being done, advancing in telemedicine and so forth, even though it's in not the best of conditions. Steve, do you have a brief closing comment for us today?
No, thanks to all the presenters. Great applications and great functionality. We're really proud to be supporting applications like this and others going forward that support our first responders as well as those that they serve. So it's we're really honored to be that platform that supports those users.
Great. And to the attendees, I just want to remind you that a lot of information is available in that handouts pane. Go ahead and download that here in the next minute or so. And also everybody's emails are there for you. So if you have any further questions, specific questions about your jurisdictions and access and who you would contact, please reach out to our presenters today, because they are ready and willing to avail themselves to you to vet their applications in your in your area and help you deploy them if they are truly what you need to solve whatever issues you're up against. So thank you again to all of our presenters today. Truly remarkable insights into where we're headed with the innovation, really. I mean, this is just a testament to the innovation that's been released now with this incredibly robust and reliable network that we have in FirstNet. So hats off to all of you. I hope that everybody enjoyed our webinar today and felt that it was time well spent. We deeply appreciate your participation. And again, we are the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association, and we want to be your advocate for all aspects of FirstNet utilization. By being here today, you have truly helped us support and continually bring you the cutting edge information about FirstNet, our nation's only fully designated mission critical first responders network, and all aspects of the ecosystem that are being purpose built to your advantage. Please visit our webpage at thepsbta.org for more information on the association, our upcoming webinars, and the recordings of all of our previous webinars. In appreciation for your attendance today, you will receive a free membership to our association for 2020. Also, let your friends and peers know that by attending one of our webinars, it includes a free membership to the PSBTA, which is a $75 value as a gift from us while we all try to navigate our current situation in dealing with COVID. Finally, consider visiting allthingsfirstnet.com as well. Their team continually compiles valuable information about FirstNet and the developing ecosystem. This concludes our webinar, Using Technology to Quicken Life-Saving Care. Please join us next week at the same time for our webinar on incorporating responder wellness into the FirstNet app ecosystem. Thank you again for your time and be safe out there.
Thanks, Martha.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Thanks.